الله أكبر.
نحمده ونصلي على رسوله الكريم أما بعد أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. In today's short talk, in today's lesson, we are going to be discussing or listening to a topic which is actually very close to my heart. And the topic, which is actually very important, bearing in mind it is the month of Ramadan, is with regards to the importance of time. Now, there are many Quranic verses, in particular Wal Asr, which talks about the importance of time, talks about the value of time. There are many ahadith where Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam has mentioned on the day of judgment, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will ask every one of us how we spent our youth, how we spent our time in this world. So time is something which is very, very important. And perhaps we as students may not realize the importance of time. We may be thinking that, oh, it doesn't matter, 1 or 2 seconds here and there get wasted. It doesn't really matter. But actually, if you speak to, say, runners, sprinters, marathon runners, and they'll tell you the importance of 0.001 second. Because of that 0.001 second, it determines whether they get gold or whether they get silver. Whether they get silver or whether they get bronze. If you speak to people who are involved in accidents, they'll tell you the importance of time. They'll tell you that if only 1 second earlier I had pressed my brakes, I wouldn't have been involved in an accident. I wouldn't have knocked that child over. I wouldn't have knocked that person over. So when you speak to people who are involved in accidents, runners, sprinters, marathon runners, football players, cricket players, these types of people, they'll tell you the importance of time. They know the value of 1 second. They'll know the value of 0.001 second. Now, for us students, time is something which is very, very important. And I'm just going to give you a couple of examples of my respected teachers. Example number 1 of Hazrat Maulana Hashim Sahib, and number 2 of Mufti Shabir Sahib. 2 great personalities. And I just want to share with the students and the teachers here about Maulana Hashim Sahib, the way he valued time. But his valuing of the time is more, I'll say, on the ibadat side. And then the example of Mufti Shabir Sahib, he's valuing of the time more in terms of his lessons and more in terms of his research and more in terms of him delivering the lectures and lessons, how he preserved and valued time. Now, the first example I'll give is of Maulana Hashim Sahib. Now, in Darul I was there for 10 years. So I joined in 1997 when, alhamdulillah, Maulana Hashim Sahib obviously was still old, but he was able to walk. And Maulana Hashim Sahib, when I was there in 97, he actually lived, obviously now he lives in Darul, but before he actually lived on the main road. And obviously the students and the teachers, we've been to Darul a few times now. You know that main road where we travel on, and then there's that curve going on to the hilly part which takes you towards Darul Uloom. So Maulana Hashim Sahib, he lived on that main road. And there were many occasions on a Saturday after Anjuman used to finish, so some of the students would go down to the town centre, and we would pass by Mona Hashim Sab's house. And most of the time, we would see Mona Hashim Sab outside, especially in the summer. He'll be outside with his grandsons, and he would always have a tasbih with him. Always have a tasbih bead with him. And he'll always be doing tasbih. And when I talk about having a tasbih bead, you get a lot of people nowadays, they carry tasbihs with them, but you never see them actually doing any tasbih. But Mona Hashim Sab actually would have the tasbih, and you would see him reading something, doing dhikr, doing tasbih, doing something, and he will be moving the bead one after another. And even later on, Mona Hashim Sab, when he obviously now is more wheelchair bound, so Mona Hashim Sab used to actually teach us Sunnah Abu Dawood at 2 o'clock. So after Dhuhr would finish, from 1:30 till 2, he would be in the Jamaat Khana. And rather than, say, for example, having cups of teas and reading the newspapers and doing other kinds of things, Mona Hashim Sab would always have a Quran open and he'll be reading Quran. And when it would be 2 o'clock, he would then close his Quran, tell one of his khadim to take him to the Bukhari class, and then he would do Sunnah Abu Dawood thus, all the way until 3:30. And then after 3:30, he would then go back to the Jamaat, and depending, obviously, if it was in the summer, he would then go downstairs to his house. If it was the winter, he would wait for Maghrib, but again, he'll either do zikr, he'll do some tasbih, he'll recite some Quran. And to tell the truth, the 10 years I was there, I never ever saw Mona Hashim Sab waste his time. I never saw him. Either he would be teaching, number 2, he would be reciting Quran, or he will be reciting tasbih or dhikr. These are the 4 things. Obviously, what is to happen at home, only Allah knows best. But what we are mukallaf, what we are subjected of is the zahir and the apparent. And the 10 years I was there, never saw Mona Hashim Sab waste a second of his life. He would either be teaching or engage in some form of dhikr, some form of ibadah to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So that's one great personality, Mona Hashim Sab. And today he's still keeping that tartib, that sequence up in his old age, in his ill health. He'll still do the same. He'll come early, he'll do his prayers, he will then read Quran until Dhuhr time, Jamaat time. Even for Fajr as well, the exact same. He will be there early, he'll be the first one there before the students will be there. He'll be reading Quran until Fajr Jamaat. After Fajr, he will be reading Quran Zikr. That's what he did throughout the whole 10 years I was there. So that's one example. Then let's take another example. Perhaps we as students may relate to Mufti Shabir Sahib a bit more. Mufti Shabir Sahib, again, the time I was there, he would be engaged in teaching, and whenever there would be free lessons, again, never would see him take a break. Never would see him relaxing and going here and there, going for a stroll. He would be sitting in a class, or later on where there was actually some chairs near the balcony area which we saw when we visited Darul. He would be sitting there, he'll have his Bukhari open, he'll have his Tirmidhi open, he'll have his Jalain open, his Mishkat open, and he'll be doing Mutala. If he's not there, then he'll be in the library doing Mutala. So these are 2 examples, Mona Hashim Sahib and Mufti Shabir Sahib, that any second they had, they didn't waste it in little things or in petty things, but they always stuck to the basics, the foundation, the purpose of them being at Darul, which was like to teach. And after teaching, then obviously doing the Mutala. They didn't get involved in other kind of issues of politics and these kinds of things, but they just stuck to what they needed to do. Another great example, Sufi Sahib. Again, like he will come teach, when in free time he will have any free lessons he'll be again in the library, or there was actually a student's bedroom, which was quite near to the main building, where Hazrat Sufi Sahib would be sitting there doing mutala of some books. So this is how Mona Hashim Sahib, Mufti Shabir Sahib, Sufi Sahib, these great personalities, this is how they kind of spent their time. It was either in kitabs and whenever they would finish teaching, then they would spend their time doing dhikr, remembering Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, or doing research, doing mutala, doing something. But the key thing was that they never wasted a second of their life. Now we live in a time, unfortunately, that shaitan is very, very clever. Shaitan is so crafty. He's so clever. And sometimes it happens that we may be doing things where we think that we're actually doing good, but the reality is that we're wasting our time. And there may be occasions where we're actually doing good, but shaitan puts this thing into our mind that we are actually wasting our time. So then what happens is that we abandon that. A good example I could think of, especially happens a lot in the month of Ramadan, is recitation of Quran. What happens is that many people, they read Quran. Alhamdulillah, it's a very good thing. For every letter you read, you get 10 rewards. But unfortunately, you get people nowadays, they'll say to you, oh brother, why are you reading Quran for? You don't understand the Quran. Close the Quran, read Quran translation instead. So many people are like that. They actually nowadays, they don't really read Quran as much. Because people, whether shaitan is putting waswasas or whispers in their ears, or whether people is what we call shaitanul ins, in the form of shaitan, are whispering to people, telling people that, brother, sister, why are you doing Quran khatams for? You don't understand the Quran. So might as well close the Quran and read a Quran translation instead. So this is how shaitan, in a clever way, is making it out to us that reading Quran in the month of Ramadan, we're wasting our time. Which, as all of you know, that is never the case. Reading Quran, reading even a single letter of the Quran, you get reward and you get thawab. But shaitan will make it as though that, oh, you don't know the translation, you know what, don't read the Quran, read Quran translation, or you know what, join an alim class after Ramadan and then start learning Quran translation then, and then that's what shaitan does. So people, they don't read Quran as much. That's why if you go to the mosque, you'll find very few people actually reading Quran in the month of Ramadan. You'll be actually shocked. If you were to think about 10, 20 years ago, everybody used to read Quran. Whenever you used to go to the masjid for Asr, Dhuhr, you'll find so many people reading Quran. But now you find actually a lot of people, they're not reading Quran, they're just doing tasbih, or they're just like sitting around. So this is one of the reasons, because this kind of thing has been portrayed that you need to understand the Quran, you need to translation before you can read it. So many people have stopped reading the Quran, have abandoned the Holy Quran. So that's an example of something which we are doing, but shaitan is making as though that we're wasting our time. So what happens? We abandon it. And just very quickly, another example, this is where, as I said, that we may be thinking to ourselves that we're doing good. But actually, shaitan is using that as a means to waste our time. And there's so many examples I could think of, but just one which just comes to my mind is like certain, say, for example, getting involved in debates, especially on forums where you have debates, like Ramadan, should it be, like when's Ramadan or when's Eid? Is it going to be on a Friday? Is it going to be on a Saturday? Is it going to be on a Sunday? And then, bringing out debates, or Saudis say this, Moroccan people say that, and this and that, and this and that, just going into debates and wasting time in that way. And the latest time-wasting situation now is 18 degrees. Should we break our fast at 1:15, or can we break it at 3 o'clock? So you get people on forums, they're just like bringing fatwas of so-and-so mufti saying, no, you have to break it at 1:18 or 1:20. Other mufti saying, no, you could break it all the way up to 2:40. And then the rest of the Ramadan, they spend just basically debating with each other until the end Ramadan finishes. And then, as mentioned in the hadith, that wretched is that person who finds the month of Ramadan and he lets the month of Ramadan pass without achieving forgiveness. And this is what happens. In the month of Ramadan, you get people, they're debating. When should we break our sahri? When should we finish our sahri by? What time we should do iftar? And the next thing you know, that as soon as Ramadan finishes, that's it. That argument stops. No one talks about it until next Ramadan, when the shaitan ins comes back again and tells them to start the argument over again. and then for the next 30 days, they spend arguing on that same topic, and then it finishes, and then the next Ramadan comes and they start arguing again on that very same topic. So that is another example where we may be thinking, yeah, I'm giving my dalails here, I'm quoting so-and-so mufti, and you think that you're doing good work of deen. But actually you're wasting your time. You're wasting your time. And I said many times before that we as Muslims should sometimes wake up and smell the coffee. There's people outside there who are becoming murtads. And we are just here, wasting our time trying to debate with other people about what time the Sehri finishes and what time Sehri doesn't finish. Whereas people outside, they're becoming murtad. People outside are going out of the fold of Islam. So what I want to explain is that when it comes to utilizing your time, always ask yourself this question, that whatever I'm doing, say for example, is there any benefit for me? Is there any benefit for me in this world and in the hereafter? Always, whatever you get involved, whether it's deen or whether it's dunya. Obviously, if it's deen, there's going to be benefit. But even when it comes to dunya, ask yourself this question, that whatever I'm doing, is there actually any benefit for me? And if you could see there's some benefit, then read Salatul Hajjah and then get involved in that. But if you see that there's no benefit in there, then don't basically get involved in something. Because you will see that your life will just pass, chasing something like dunya, but the reality is that you're just going to get what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had decreed. So what I want to explain is a very important topic, utilize our time, especially in the month of Ramadan. Look, already one Ashara has gone more or less, so we got 2 Asharas left. So the next thing you know, that the next Ashara will finish, and then we only have 10 days left. The next thing you know, the last Ashara is finished, and it's Ramazan's finished, Eid, and that's it, Ramazan's gone. So utilize the days of Ramadan, every second of Ramadan, utilize it. Even the nights as well. Just because we're not fasting a night, it's still the month of Ramadan. So utilize that time. Do some ibadah, do some worship, qiyamul layl, tahajjud, these things, utilize your time. For students perhaps, read some books, read your darsi books perhaps, do something. But the key thing is that utilize your time. Don't waste any second during the blessing month of Ramadan. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us tawfiq.